Okay, Zok the Helig Gemara. Tony Raboishia, the Kedushin de Levi. Levi assembled a whole bunch of brises on Mesechus Kedushin. And the name of the Sefer was Kedushin de Levi. And Raboishia found a brisa in this Sefer Kedushin de Levi. And this is what it said. Noal Godar Parats. Noal means to lock, Godar means to build a wall, Parats means to open up, like a doorway. And we're going to see precisely what these things mean on Amud Aleph. But if you did one of these activities, kolshu, even that tiny drop, bifonav, if you did this in front of the moicher or in front of the noisin, in front of the person who is giving you the field, then harezu chazak. So the Gemara's medayik, it's mashma bifonav in that this chazaka only works if it's done in front of the person who's giving up the field. But shaloi bifonav loy. But if you made a chazaka and the owner wasn't there, the chazaka wouldn't be good. But we know it works even for nichse hager, and hager is not there. Rabbi Ephraim, can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so Rivero doesn't hear me, but I think he's having a problem with his audio. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay, gewaltig. Gezakte Gemara, so Amar Rava Hachi Ka'amar. This is what we mean to say. Bifonav leitzarech l'meimer lei chazek. If the owner watches you do some action that displays, that manifests an expression of ownership, and he doesn't say anything, if he's seeing you, he doesn't have to say lei chazek ukni. That's a good kinyan. But shaloi bifonav. Now let's turn on to Amud Aleph. What if you did a deal with somebody in Toronto, but the property is actually in New York? So you went, not in front of him, to make a chazaka. There, it's only going to be a good chazaka if he instructs you to do that. The Bailam have to instruct you to make a chazaka, and there it will be a good chazaka. So we've been talking up until this point about a mechira. If the mechira is in front of you, you don't have to say lei chazek. And if the mechira is not in front of you, you have to say lei chazek. So what if the matana is in front of you? So we know by a mecher, you don't have to say lei chazek. What about by a matana? Boy rav matana hech. By a matana, would you have to say lei chazek or not? Zok to Gemara Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel asked, I don't understand what Rav Shaila is. Of course, you should have to say Lech Chazek. Why? Hashta Uma Mecher Likayoyev Lezuzik. By a Mecher, where I'm giving you my property, I'm getting something for it. You're paying me, which means I'm obviously inclined to want to give you the field because I'm getting something in return. Nevertheless, if I'm not there, so matana, where I'm giving it to you and I'm getting nothing in return, so I'm less likely and less inclined to want to be makna my field to you. Loy kolshagain, surely you should have to say leich tazek ukni. So Shmuel has a very good taina. What's Rav Havamina that by matana you should not have to say leich tazek ukni? Zok to Gemara, Rav has a very good svar. But Rav Savar, man de yov matana ben yofa yov. If someone wants to give somebody else a matana, if someone wants to give somebody a piece of property, it's obviously somebody who he loves very much. If you want to give him a property, you obviously love him. So it's even the bigger motivation to be makna to you than the fact that you're paying me. Because if I'm selling something, I don't really want to sell it. We learned before, it's also in a way a little bit of a force. Because I'm stuck, I need money, so I'm going to give it up. But a matana, someone who wants to give it, maybe there's a stronger svar to say that you shouldn't lead to say lei chazek. So that's a very good taina. That's a very good taina that Shmuel has. I'm sorry, it's a very good taina that Rav has. That a matana, someone who gives a matana, he gives it be'ein yafa. But it's such a good taina that we have to ask on Shmuel, because Shmuel also holds that a matana is given ben yafa. Because we learned last week that if a husband sells a property to his wife, he still eats the payers. But if he gifts a property to his wife, he doesn't eat the payers because he's giving it ben yafa. He's giving up all of his rights to it. So Shmuel agrees that man de yoiv matana ben yafa yoiv. So why was Shmuel questioning Rav Shaila? So the Rashbam is masber beautiful. Once we can be sure that this is a matana, once it's a valid matana, sure, it's ben yafa. But when he's being maknit, he didn't give the matana yet. How do you know that he's in that mindset that he wants to give it? Therefore, you would need to say, like, yeah, once he gives it, then we say he's giving it fully because we know that he sealed the deal and he gave the matana. Gewaltig. Frankly, of a kama kolshu. We learned that you have to be Noel kolshu, Godar kolshu, or Paretz kolshu. So what exactly do you have to do? Let's bring this down to real concrete examples. Kiddush Shmuel, it's similar to what Shmuel said. The Yamar Shmuel, Godar Geder v'Shlimoy le'asar. What if he built a fence, and I guess the fence was a little bit less than 10 tefachim, and he brought it up to 10 tefachim? Uparatz pirza, kadeshi kanes v'yetzeba. Or he opened up an opening in the fence to create a gateway to get in and out of the fence. Harezu chazaka, this would be a chazaka. So the Gemara wants to drill down to understand precisely what Shmuel was talking about. Hageder hekadam. What exactly does it mean you built this fence? Ilema de meikara loy have a solkila. If you're going to tell me that when this fence was originally a little bit less than 10 tefachim, it still was able to keep out any intruders. And now that you raised the fence to 10 tefachim, still loy salkala, so nothing changed. My avad, what did he do? That's not a manifestation of ownership. Before he was involved, the field was protected. And after he got involved, the property is protected. So that shouldn't be a chazaka. The Ella must be the Meikara Havasalkala. Before he did his tikkun, before he raised the fence, people could get in and out easily. And now they can't get in at all. So for Gemara, that's not a kol shu. Tuvavad. He did a major change. He took a completely unprotected property and he made it protected. Before the gate was 10 tefachim, anybody could get in and out. It was easy. Now that at 10 tefachim, it's not impossible to get out, but it's more difficult to get out. So I didn't do a major thing. I didn't make it impossible to get in and out, but I did make it more difficult to get in and out. That's what we're referring to as a kol shu. That little bit of improvement is enough of an improvement to show Bibles to make a king. So that is the Goda. What about Paratz? High parts echadami. What's the case of Parza? That you opened up an opening. If there was always an opening in the fence that people could get in and out of easily, and he made it wider, and the same status, the same question, Mayova. What improvement did he do? The Elo de Mikor have Ailaba, or you're going to tell me before no one could get in, now people can get in? Two Bava. That's not a kosher. That's also a massive, massive change. There was a gate, but it was a tight gate. It was hard to get in. And he opened it up that now it's easy to get in. Gewaltig. Now, if you notice, we discussed there's three things that make a chazaka: noal, godar, uparatz. The Gemara elaborated what godar is, and the Gemara elaborated what paratz is, but there's no mention of noal. So how does noal make a chazaka? So Baruch Hashem, we have the Rashbam who's going to help us find the answer. So if we go down to the wide lines in the Rashbam, and we count 4 lines down in the wide lines of the Rashbam, and we go towards the end of the line, there's a little dot. And the Rashbam says, the Gabi Noah. So how does all this that we learned regarding Godar and Paratz, how can we apply it to Noah? The Gabi Noah calls to Nami, Ika Lefrushe Kahagavna. We can explain it the same way. Shesosam Pesach Stima Kolshu. He closed up a little bit, he closed up a doorway. Then Mikara Aila Barafka. It used to be easy to get in and out. And now it's going to be more difficult to get in and out. That could be one example of law. Inami, another example is you installed a lock on the door. Shekava minoil bedelas linoil boy. You actually installed a lock. The Hainu binyan, you're actually building on, adding on to this property because you're actually installing a new lock. That would be a good chazakah. But what if there was already a lock and you just locked the door? Aval sagar esadelas v'noal b'mavteach. Then b'nichsi ager in chazakah. Although it would be a good chazakah if you're buying it from somebody or if you're receiving it from somebody, but if you're being kohen it from hefker, which is what nichsi ager is, ain't a chazakah, that wouldn't be a good chazakah. Why? The ein zeh ela oisa mitzvah lishmor beis chaveira. If your friend's door is left open, you owe it to him, the mitzvah, to help him prevent loss. Like I know often, not often, but from time to time, I get a phone call from a friend of mine who tells me, Yosy, are you aware your garage door is open? You better close it. So then what happens is I get all paranoid and I look around the garage to see if someone came into the garage and stole something. And of course, if something's missing, and they get all angry at my kids for being careless and leaving the garage door open. And now something that I had important in the garage is missing. And then I find the next day where I put it. But I'll call upon them. That's not called showing ownership. Closing someone's door that was left open is what you need to do for your friend's house. Because mitzvah lishmor bayis chavera. And that's called umavriach ari minichse chaverehu. That's referred to in the Gemara as chasing away a lion from your friend's nechasim. So the response here is always, if you're renting or buying from somebody, merely the owner handing you the keys, that is a good chazakah. But that's good when you're getting it from somebody else. But when you're getting it from hefker, you'd have to actually be installing a lock in order for it to be a good chazakah. Gewaltig. Amar Rabasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Back into the Gemara. What happens if nosan shror, you put a rock in the hole, the hoil, and it helped? We're going to soon see what it helped for. Or not al shror, you took a block out of the wall, the hoil, and it helped. Hareza chazakah. That would be a chazakah. Correct, Gemara. What exactly are we talking? My nosan, my notan. Zok the Gemara. Ilema nosan shror, the sucker mayimina. Imagine, to us this is very real. There's a massive rainstorm and your friend's basement is flooding and the main floor drain in his basement is where the water's coming up. And you quickly go with a big plug and you plug up his floor drain, and because of that, you save his house. So that's what we're talking about over here. There's rain flooding through someone's gate in this property and you plug the wall to stop the rain from coming in. So if that's what it means, or not al truar of avak mayimina means the water couldn't drain out because the drain hole is plugged and you pulled out the drain hole, or in our language, you restarted his sump pump that got disconnected, right? That's not a manifestation of ownership. That's normal to do for other people's property because it's a mitzvah to help protect other people's property. So that doesn't show that you own it because you would do it for another person. Elo, what is showing bilus? Nosan sror the tzamad lamaya. What it means is, let's say water got into his dry, parched field, and you didn't want it to drain out. You wanted it to stay there and get absorbed in the property so to irrigate it well. That's when you plug the other side so the water wouldn't get out. That's not saving anything. It's not marich hari, but it's something that an owner would do to improve his property, and that's why that's a show of bilus. It's a good chazakah. Or not al tzror, but arvach lamaya. Or if there's water coming in, but it can't get in, and you pull out a block to let water get in, once again, to irrigate the field, that would be a show of bilus. That would be a good chazakah. What about if you have shtei sados, there's two fields side by side, they both belong to this ger shemeis, they're both hefker, umeitzar echad b'neim, and there's a border in between them. Now we learned that a border in those days wasn't just a fence. A border in those days was the border of each field was either a hill or it was a ditch. So it was on a different plane. And what happened was, so there's a clear demarcation between these two properties. What if you made a chazakah in one of these two fields because you wanted to be koined? Kana, avada, it would work. That's the classic case of chazakah. Let's turn now on to Amud Beis. Liknois oisa veschaverta. What if you made a chazaka in property A, but you want to be kind of both properties A and B with it? It won't work. Oisa kana, you'll be kind of the property that you made a chazaka on. Chaverta loikana. You're not kind of the neighboring property. Now it's important to point out this is only when you're being kind of a property from Hefker. If you're buying a property from somebody else, we know the halacha is if I buy 10 properties from somebody and they're scattered all over the world, and I pay him for the 10 properties, and I make a chazaka in one of those 10 properties, I'm koina all 10 properties. And we say sadno da arachatu. It's one blow. All land is connected. So making a chazaka in one property will be koina everything. That only works when there's a das acheres makna, when you're buying it from somebody and he's being makna to you all 10 fields and you paid for them. However, when you're being koina from hefker, that doesn't work. You have to make a specific chazaka on the specific field that you want to be koina. So therefore, liknes ois chavita ois a koina chavita loikam. What if liknes is chavita? What if I made a chazaka? I was no gather parts field A, but I really wanted to be kind of field B. But I figured they're sort of connected, so I'll do the chazak here, but I wanted to kind of field B. Then af oisal come. You're not kind of A where you made the chazaka because that's not where you even wanted to be kind of. You're not kind of B because you didn't make a chazaka in B. What happens if hichzik ba'achas mahen litnois oitzav as a Normally, nobody's interested in the border areas. It's not really usable. But what if you made a chazaka in one of the properties, in the property A, but you also had in mind to be kind of the border with that chazaka, ve'es chaverta and its chaverta. So up until now, we might be saying the reason why if you made a chazaka on A, you're not kind of B, is there's a big mafsik in between. There's the border. But what if you have kavanah to be kind of the border as well? Now it should join them all together, and maybe your one chazaka will be kind of the whole big area. Now. Do we say that once he's calling the Meitzar, so now he's literally connected to the next field as well? It doesn't matter. There are two separate properties, and the Meitzar is also a separate entity. And the Gemara, the Rishvam explains that you're not even calling the Meitzar. If you make a chazaka on a property, even though you want to be calling the Meitzar, with that chazaka, it won't work. The Meitzar is a separate area. Zok the Gemara teku. The Gemara blives with a teku. What about hichzik b'meitzar litlush name? What if you made it directly a chazaka on the meitzar itself? So you'll be kind of the meitzar. Now the meitzar is adjoining both fields. So maybe the meitzar should be like reins in the hands of somebody. Imagine you have two animals and you're holding both reins together. You're kind of both animals. So here too, I'm holding the meitzar, which means I'm holding the reins of both these properties. Maybe you would be kind of. Ma'u mi arminan high meitzar after the arahu. The border area is just like holding the leash of an animal, the kani, and therefore you'll be kind of both properties. Idilma high lechudekoi, high lechudekoi. They're two separate properties, and your meitzar is not considered holding on to the reins of these properties. And once again, the Gemara remains with a take. Amar Rab Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravu. What about Shnei Botim Zelef Lemizeh? Imagine you walk into a property, there's one house, and there's another house behind it, but you cannot get to the house behind unless you go through the house in front. So to get to house B, you have to go through house A, which means that house A is mishubit to house B, because house B has a right to walk through house A. But house B is not mishubit to house A, because A has no right to walk into house B at all. So the shayla is as follows. You made a chazak in house A, the outer one. L'knoizoi to koina A. Kana your koina. Liknes oizoi ves apnimi. What if you made a chazak on A, but you wanted to be koina both A and B? It doesn't work. Chita and kana. You made a chazak in A, so you're koina A. But pnimi like kana. But you're not koina B, because making a chazak in A shows no bias on B at all. But what about liknes as apnimi? What if you made a chazak on A, but you wanted to be koina B? So then, similar to what we said before, you're making a chazaka on a property that you don't want to be koina, and you're trying to be koina a property that you didn't make a chazaka. What about hichzik b'pnimi l'knosai? What if you made a chazaka on B because you wanted to be koina B? Avad kana, you'll be koina. What about liknos oisai ve'es achitzai? What if you made a chazaka on B, but with it you wanted to be kind of that and A, and they are somewhat connected because A is somewhat meshubed to B? Kanashnaim, it will work because yes, they are somewhat connected. But what if you made a chazaka on B and you didn't want to be kind of B? You only wanted to be kind of A. Litness is a chidzain, then av panimi like kana. Why? Because you didn't make a chazaka on the land that you wanted, and you didn't want the land that you made the chazaka. Amar Rab Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravu. Haboina palterin gedoylin benichse hager. Imagine someone wanted to be koina the property of a ger. So he did an unbelievable show of ownership. He built a massive palace, but he didn't put the front doors on. And then another guy comes along, the Hemid Dalsois, and put doors on. Kana, he's koina, he makes the chazaka. So the guy who invested $2 million in building this big palace, he gets nothing. And the guy who comes with doors, he's koina the whole thing. Why? My timer. Kama livni ba'ama huda apeh. The first guy just piled up bricks. Building up a big structure doesn't mean anything. It's not protected. The whole chazaka happens when you protect the house, and that's when you put the doors on. But Tosfos asks, when you're building, you got to dig. Didn't we say digging in a property is also a chazaka? The Tosfos answers that's if you're digging in a property to plow it, to plant it, to cultivate it. Digging for construction does not count. Zok the heilige Gemara weiter. Amrab Dimi Bar Yosef Amar Belazar. Hamoiti palterin benichse ager. You found a ready-made, beautiful palace benichse ager, and you want to be konyit. Can't put a door on. It has a door. It's completely finished. So what did you do? V'sod bahen siyud echad. You went with plaster and you made some type of design. I don't know exactly what this design looked like, but if I would imagine it, you know the older houses, they have ceilings that have like a design on them. It's not just a flat sheetrock. So you made some type of nice design. Or kier echad, it's also some type of design. Kanon, you're konyit just by making the design, because by making that improvement in the house, that's also a showing of ownership. The kama, how big does this have to, does this area of improvement have to be? Rabbi Yosef, Amma. It has to be at least an Amma, and the Tziyonim say Amma al Amma. That's how big it has to be, which incidentally is what the shear is for a Yuzei Chaluchurban. And the Amar Abchista Uchaneged Pesach. Amma al Amma, that size is good enough if it's right by the entrance when you walk and you notice it. But if you have it somewhere else in the house, it would have to be much bigger so it would attract attention so people will know, oh, he put a stempler, he's manifesting violence. He's exerting violence over here. Omar Rabam said, Hi Milsa Omar Lon Rab Sheshus. Rab Sheshus taught us a chiddush that I'm about to share with you. And he brought a riot to his chiddush from a brisa. What is the chiddush? If someone goes into the property of a ger, hefker property, and he puts down sleeping bags or beds, and then he sleeps there, so he's having direct hanoah from the karka, and he made a maizeh, he put mattresses down, hanoah, that's enough to be kohen. And he proved to us that this idea of physically having a physical benefit directly from the thing you want to be kohen is a good kinyan. But here, Mahi, which brisa did he prove it from? The Tanya. What if you want to be kohen on Evet? How are you kohen on Evet? So the one way to be kohen on Evet is with chazaka. How do you make a chazaka on an Evet? Kated b'chazaka. Either no loymin alay, if the Evet tied your shoe, or hit the loymin alay, or he untied your shoe, or this person carried your supplies to the Beis HaMerchatz, so that will make you be kind to him. Or if Shida, if he got you undressed, or if you're Chita, if he bathed you, Sacha, if he smeared you, Garda, if he scraped you, Vilbisha, or if he dressed you, Vinila, if he put on your shoes, Vihigbioi, and if he was picked up. I'm not sure yet who's picking who up, but all these cases, Kana, you're Kana. Rab Shimon says, Avada Hagba is Kana. Loisei Chazaka Gedoyle me Hagba, Shagba Kana B'chol Makai. Hagba is the best kinyan. Of course, Hagba works. Problem is, isn't that what the Talmud Kama just said? The Higbiya Kanai. So what is Reb Shimon saying? Reb Shimon is supposed to be arguing on the Talmud Kama. It's much Reb Shimon is fighting that Hagba should be a good kinyan, which would tell us that Reb Shimon understood that the Tanakama said that Hagbah is not a good kinyan. But it says in the Bride of Igbiya Kanai, my Kamar, what's going on over here? Everything or Hachikamar. Igbiya Rabbi Kanai. If the Eved lifted up the Adain, then the Adain is kind of the Eved, because there the Adain is having Hanoch from the Eved. That's what the Tanakama said. But Igbiya Rabbi Loi, but if the Adain lifts up the Eved, which normally is a Kinyan Hagbah, likely that wouldn't work. Why would the Tanakama also doesn't work? Because that's not the derech. It's not the derech to make Hagbah on the Avadim. So therefore it wouldn't work. And on that, Reb Shimon said, Amar Reb Shimon, no. Loi zei chazaka gedola me'Hagbah. If chazaka works on the Eved, Hagbah should work on the Eved. Because Hagbah is the ultimate silver bullet kinyan that works everywhere. Hagbah is the master kinyan. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Bira. Rabbi Yirmiyah Bira said, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, then Rabbi Yehuda. Hi man, this person, this Shoda, and let's turn on to tomorrow's daf, which is Nun Dalet, Amar Aleph. Hi man, the Shoda, Lifta Beipili the Ara de Ger. He took parsnips, and there was a bunch of holes and ditches and cracked areas in the soil, and he just threw the parsnips in there. He didn't plant them properly, cover them with soil. He just threw them in. And then over time, they developed roots, and they actually grew at the end, weeks later. Lo have a chazaka. That wouldn't be a good chazaka. My timer. The either the shada, when you threw them in, lo have a shvach. There was no shvach that you made to the land. If you would have planted them properly, we consider that a shvach to the land. But just throwing them in a hole, there's no shvach. So that's not showing bias. And sure, a couple of weeks later, they grow roots. But when they're growing roots, that's happening by itself. That's not something that you're doing, and therefore there's no chazaka here at all. So Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish daf Nun Gimel, and Be'ez Hashem tomorrow we'll learn daf Nun Daled. I just want to share with you a beautiful, beautiful thought that we learned from our Gemara. Our Gemara talks about the significance of putting doors on a building. The fellow built a beautiful palace, and there was nothing. There was no chazaka. The next guy comes along and puts the doors on. That's called building the palace. We say in our Musaf Tefillah of Yom Tov, the Har'enu b'vinyanoi v'samchenu b'sikun. You're going to show us the beautiful binyan Beis Hamikdash, and you're going to be samechet when you fix it up. It almost sounds like you're buying a fixer-upper house. Hashem's going to show us the building, and then we're going to be happy when we fix it up. Doesn't make sense to say that we're getting a building to renovate. So in the Pat Siddur, the famous Siddur from Yaakov Emden, he writes that what shot in that is, he's going to show us the Beis Hamikdash, we're going to be happy with the tikkun that Hashem made in the Beis Hamikdash before he brought it to us. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shemayim builds the Beis Hamikdash, and then it comes down in the Shemayim already Mesukad. So we'll see the Beis Hamikdash, and we'll be happy that prior to it coming down, it was already fixed up and put into place. But there are those who learn, the Medrash says that when the Beis Hamikdash was charev, although the building was charev, the daltois, the sha'arim, the gates of the Beis Hamikdash sunk into the ground, and they remain good. And when Mashiach comes and we rebuild the Beis Hamikdash might come down from Shemayim, but it's not going to have doors. We're going to put the doors on. So Vareni bin Yonah, your Bonshlam should soon bring us the Beis Hamikdash, and then we'll be Misameach when we are zoicha to complete the binyan Beis Hamikdash by putting the doors on. We should be zoicha to that, the car of mamash. Good to vote.